This is the new Canon R7. I'm putting in a fully charged battery, and since it has no record limit, we're going to see how long it can record before the battery completely drains. And then I'm going to take it outside and put it next to an R6 and start recording in direct heat and figure out which one overheats first. And then finally I'll step outside to do a vlogging style walking test to see if the dreaded Canon R series wobble exists, and if so, how bad it really is. Back to the record limit test. One of the reasons I purchased the R7 was I needed a new B-roll camera. I didn't want to buy another R6 because no matter how much I love it, I'm still bothered by all the overheating issues and the 30-minute record time on it. In fact, this is me just a week ago recording an upcoming science video about tadpoles, and you can see that I'm getting the overheat warning on the R6. Getting back to the record limit test, you can see it has easily gone past the record limit and is now at the 42-minute mark before we lose the first bar of battery. So if there are 4 bars on the battery icon, that would imply that we could potentially get close to 3 hours of recording on this one single charge. So let's see if that happens. The reason I had to get new B-roll cameras was using these adapters to fit on my old lenses so I could attach them to the new camera was becoming increasingly painful. So I sold my 90D and my M50 with the idea that I would upgrade all my cameras to the new R series cameras. So not wanting to buy another camera that overheats like my R6, I bought the new R7, and let's see what happens. Back at the test, here you can see we're at the 1 hour and 11-minute mark. We have lost another bar of battery, and interestingly enough, you can see the overheating indicator has turned on. But we are quite a few bars away from the red, so we'll just keep an eye on that. Because as you can see, as we progress to the 1 hour and 37-minute mark, it's starting to get hotter. Now we're at the 1 hour and 42-minute mark, and you can see we have 2 bars of battery life remaining. So that's doing pretty good. But I'm filming this experiment with my R6, and because it has 30-minute record limits, I have to stop and restart it during this experiment. Unfortunately, one of the times I stopped it, I forgot to restart it, and when I went back to check on the camera, you can see now we're at the 2 hour and 11-minute mark, and we are definitely in battery life danger zone. And finally, at the 2 hour, 13-minute, and 22-second mark in the video, our battery life finally dies. Coincidentally, the file size of this 2 hour plus video was 121 gigabytes. So if you have a pretty standard 128 gigabyte card, you know that you're going to be able to fill up pretty much the entire card on one single charge. I was pretty happy with that. So now it's time for the overheating test. And as you can see, right when the battery died on the camera, in this climate controlled environment, the camera overheating indicator was not in the red. So at least it would seem, indoors in a climate controlled environment, the battery in your camera is going to die way before this thing begins to overheat. Now let's take it outside in the heat and see if that remains the case. I filmed this experiment a few days ago, and here in South Carolina, on the day of this experiment, although it wasn't as hot as it has been. Hey Siri, what's the temperature outside?
It's about 91 degrees outside.
It was still pretty warm out. The overheating test was actually the first test I did of the 3 that we're doing in the video. I say that because when I turn these cameras on, it is the first time these cameras have been turned on all day. Prior to being turned on, they were together inside in a controlled climate. As this test was ongoing, I saw the sun going behind the trees and the cameras were beginning to get some shade, so I moved them into the pool deck back into the direct sunlight. And right here at the 24-minute mark, the overheating indicator lights up. Now it's just the initial warning light. No bars have been turned on. However, between the 24-minute mark when the overheating indicator turned on and the 34-minute mark, the camera is now in the red zone and overheating. I stopped the experiment at that point, and some might ask, why didn't you keep the experiment going until the camera turned off? I turned it off because for me, when the camera is in the red zone, I have no desire to continue filming because I'm too worried the camera is going to turn off in the middle of a shoot and then I have to start all over. Plus, running the camera hot just doesn't intuitively seem like a good idea for the overall longevity of the camera. So there's the answer. Indoors, in controlled climate, it really appears you're going to have no overheating issues. When you get outside, however, in direct sunlight, after about 25 minutes, all bets are off, and it really might be up to how comfortable you are continuing to record with the overheating indicator light turned on, knowing it could turn off at any moment. Now it's time to find out if the Canon R7 has the same wobble issues that the R3, R5, and my R6 have. And to do that, let's look at the footage together. And I'm in the woods, a lot of straight trees, so you should get a pretty decent idea of what the wobble is and what the image stabilization is. So with this first clip, again using the 18-150 on the R7, I don't feel like I saw that much wobble at all, so that's encouraging. The problem is, however, the wobble is really accentuated the wider the lens is. So let's look at the R7 with the 14-35. And I realized that Canon just released a firmware update 2 days ago that improves the wobble. And looking at some videos online, it is significantly improved. It's still there. And for somebody who's OCD, it bothers me a lot. So it's subtle. It's there, but it's not nearly as bad as the 14-35 on my R6 and the original wobble. And to show you what I mean, let's look at video number 3. And just for comparison, this is the R6 with the 14 to 35 on it. Because if you're this far into the video, then I'm sure you're aware of what Canon's infamous wobble is. Of course, this is before the firmware update, so it has improved a little bit, but you can probably see what I'm talking about. So that's the same test using the 14 to 35 f4 on my Canon R6, and you can clearly see the wobble in the trees in the background. And in somewhat of a cruel twist of fate, Canon actually released a firmware update on the R6, R5, and R3 the day after I bought the R7 that supposedly fixes the wobble issues. So hopefully that'll be the case. I'm still not disappointed I purchased an R7 because I really like the no record limit, and spending R6 money on a B-roll camera just doesn't make that much sense. So those are the answers. You can record for well over 2 hours. It won't overheat indoors. Outside, you might have some issues. And the R7 wobble is considerably better than my R6 counterpart. I hope this video helps you make a decision on whether or not to purchase the R7 for your needs. If you have any other questions about an R6 or an R7, leave them in the comments and I'll try to answer them. I'm happy to announce that August is here, school is restarting, and I will get back into the habit of uploading regular science videos, which is really what this channel is all about. So I hope you will subscribe, follow us along, and I'll see you next week.